Stephen Miller thought he had Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett pinned, live, national, cornered, but she smiled, said one line, and the whole room felt it shift. The hearing was already tense. Miller, true to form, came in like a wrecking ball, sleeves rolled, voice sharp, lobbing policy grenades. He was aiming to break her, trip her, rattle her, but Jasmine didn't blink. She leaned in, pen balanced between her fingers, gaze locked on his. He was mid-sentence, something smug about border stats when she did it, that smile. Not big, just enough. A quiet, deliberate curl at the edge of her lips, like someone who'd already read the last page of the novel and knew the twist. C-SPAN caught it. Social media ran it on a loop, but no one watching knew what that smile really meant. Miller faltered, barely, but enough. A stuttered stat, a glance at his aides. One shifted, one stared at her phone. Something in the air had changed, and it wasn't just politics anymore. Jasmine didn't interrupt. She didn't need to. Her silence said everything. "You sure you want to go there today?" Miller kept swinging, her voting record, her asylum stances, anything to pull her in. She sat still, calm, one hand resting on the table, eyes steady, smile unmoved. Behind her, staff exchanged glances. Miles, a young aide, was already watching a thread explode on Twitter. Elon, a gala in Austin, and Bronwyn Lang, Miller's wife. Jasmine had seen the original photos 5 days ago, before they leaked, before anyone knew what was coming. Her college roommate, now a donor, had been at that SpaceX event. Sent her the shots before they hit the cloud. So while Miller kept talking, Jasmine wasn't listening. She was thinking about how the man trying to humiliate her on live TV was about to go down in flames. "Congresswoman Crockett, would you like to respond?" the chair asked. She tilted her head, unbothered. "To which part?" Calm. Even Miller jumped in too fast. "The part where your policies failed Americans." Her smile widened. "You'll have to be more specific." There, a flicker in his face. His collar looked tight. His eyes darted, not at her, but at the press bench. "The phones." She flipped a page in her notes, didn't say another word. She didn't need to. She already had everything. The whispers were moving. The photos were real. The gossip column in LA had it queued for Friday. Even Meta couldn't scrub it. Someone had tried. Failed. Stephen Miller didn't know how fast the ground beneath him was crumbling. But Jasmine, she wasn't about to tip him off. Her smirk was the only warning. The hearing rolled on. Her mic mostly stayed off, but people in the room, the ones who watch for a living, they saw it. The shift. And the real story? It hadn't even hit the front page. 5 days before, Jasmine Crockett had been tucked into a back booth at Busboys and Poets in D.C. Late night, quiet. Just her, some hummus, an iced tea, and a blinking tablet. Her. Phone buzzed. Ayanna Blackwell, college friend, venture capitalist. "Girl, you're not going to believe who I just saw Elon with, and no, it's not who you think." Jasmine raised a brow, texted back, "I'm listening." 2 grainy photos arrived. Shot from a rooftop, blurry but clear enough. Elon Musk. A woman laughing beside him, her hand on his wrist. Back turned, but Jasmine knew that silhouette. Bronwyn Lang. Not just with him, into him. Jasmine blinked. She hadn't spoken to Bronwyn in years, not since before she married into power. But she remembered everything, and now, so would the country. Calculated, never loud. That was her move. She called Ayanna. "Where were those taken?" Ayanna laughed. "SpaceX donor event, private rooftop. No one under 5 million got through the door. I only made it in because of my firm." "Anyone else see them?" "Tons. Celebs, tech bros, a few retired senators." "Jazz, they weren't hiding, not even close." Jasmine paused. "You send these to anyone else?" "Nope, just you." Figured you'd know what to do. She did, but she didn't. Rush. Didn't forward the photos, didn't react. She opened a new note, started a list. Names, not threats. People who'd care. People who'd pretend not to, but would text 5 others the moment they heard. A political reporter at The Hill, a podcaster who used to intern for her, a legal analyst at MSNBC, and a perpetually underpaid, extremely online staffer 2 floors. Up in Rayburn. No blackmail. Just conversations. Carefully placed nudges. Hey, have you heard anything weird about Bronwyn Lang lately? Think Elon's seeing someone. Heard a rumor out of Austin. By the end of the next day, the whispers had legs. By day 3, they were sprinting. A gossip account on Instagram dropped a blind item. A tech mogul and a political spouse were getting cozy at a high-dollar event in Texas. She's married. He's not. For now, people guessed. Guesses became assumptions. Assumptions turned into screenshots, and Stephen Miller? Still completely unaware. He was too busy prepping for Jasmine, practicing zingers, studying her interviews, rehearsing ways to corner her in a hearing. He thought he had her. What he didn't know was that the world was already laughing behind his back. And Jasmine? She played it cool. She showed up to panels, spoke on voting rights, not infidelity, didn't tweet, didn't stir the pot. She didn't need to. The heat was coming on its own. Late one night in her Capitol Hill apartment, windows cracked open, laptop glowing, she scrolled Reddit threads, watched someone on TikTok stitch a blurry version of Ayanna's photo. Y'all, is that Elon Musk and Stephen Miller's wife? Jasmine smiled. Barely. This wasn't gossip. It was leverage. Not to burn anyone. Just to let the weight of hypocrisy collapse under its own gravity. She hadn't created this mess. Wasn't going to clean it up. But she'd make sure the right people knew what time it was. Still, backstory only matters if the tension pays off. And the next public moment was already locked in because long before the whispers, before the photos, there was already fire smoldering between Jasmine Crockett and Stephen Miller. Everyone in politics had seen it building. They weren't just ideological opposites. They were personal opposites, down to how they held a mic. Jasmine was sharp, deliberate, unfiltered. When she spoke, people listened. Whether they liked her or not, they couldn't tune her out. Miller. He was a chess player, cold strategy, layered intentions. His whole persona was backroom power and data-wrapped cruelty. Some admired it. Others saw it for what it was. Their first real clash? A panel on immigration in Phoenix 3 years ago, supposed to be bipartisan. It cracked within minutes. Miller argued zero-tolerance border enforcement was humane. Jasmine shut it down. You're not fixing a crisis. You're making one profitable. That moment went viral. He never forgot it. Hated the way she exposed him, unbothered by his connections, unfazed by his resume. That day was the beginning. Since then, they'd traded blows across hearings, interviews, Twitter threads. He mocked her background as a defense attorney. She tore into the human cost of his policies, and it was never just theater. When Miller joined a conservative lobbying group, her office started getting late-night emails, requests for data she'd already submitted. He showed up to events where she spoke, sometimes to argue, other times just to watch, like he was studying her, and Jasmine noticed. Last fall, at a donor retreat in Santa Barbara, she was giving a keynote on equity, and in the back, she saw him, not speaking, not networking, just watching. Like a man who thought he was ahead of the game, he wasn't. She was already 3 moves further. It was a hearing on federal infrastructure spending. Miller sat in the second row. He didn't clap. She didn't acknowledge him. But as the room emptied, he lingered just long enough to catch her eye. No words, just a smirk. A silent provocation. I'm still watching you. Jasmine wasn't rattled, but she didn't underestimate him either. On the flight back, she told her aide, Miles, "He's not the type to punch fast. He waits for comfort, then strikes. That's why this hearing mattered." It wasn't just another policy session. It was a slow-burning collision, years in the making. When Miller's name appeared as a guest speaker at the Judiciary Committee's special hearing, her team clocked it immediately. Miles looked up from his laptop. "He's back, wants to question you on asylum processing timelines." Jasmine didn't flinch. "Let him. You want to prep?" "Nothing to prep. I've been ready." But privately, she gave Miles one quiet task. Check his personal schedule. She didn't say why. 3 days later, a folder slid across her desk. Travel logs, speaking events. One strange outlier, Austin, Texas, April 14th, labeled private vacation, but it wasn't Miller's name that mattered, it was his wife's. Bronwyn Lang had flown in from Los Angeles that same day, and according to a law school contact of Miles's, she didn't return with him. Jasmine read it, closed the folder, and leaned back. People always expose themselves. By the time the hearing began, she already knew how deep the iceberg went. She remembered Phoenix, Santa Barbara, the smug looks, the midnight emails, the way silence always followed his mess. So when Miller finally sat across from her, stack of talking points in hand, voice laced with condescension, she was ready. Even with history simmering beneath the surface, it was the present moment. That would tip the scale, because this wasn't just about legislation anymore. The rooftop gala at the Lauren Hotel in Austin wasn't secret, just discreet. No press, no live stream, just SpaceX's tightest guest list, under soft string lights and glassware that clinked too politely. Top donors, hand-picked politicians, and Elon Musk holding court like a man with nothing to prove. Invites didn't come via email. They came as calls, favors. If your name wasn't already somewhere in Elon's head, you weren't getting in. Bronwyn Lang arrived at 7:30 p.m. sharp, navy silk dress, minimal jewelry, heels that made quiet declarations with every step, no +1, no visible security, just confidence. Elon met her near the bar, no hugs, no greetings, just a look. The kind that said they already knew how the night would end. To most, she was just another donor's wife. But to anyone who understood D.C., her presence snapped necks. Ayanna Blackwell spotted them first. She was there for business, talking AI, verticals with Tesla engineers. But she didn't ignore stories when they walked up to her in navy heels. She saw Elon lean in, saw Bronwyn laugh, not politely but intimately, the kind of laugh born of too much familiarity. Ayanna didn't need a background check. She angled her phone low and snapped 2 clean photos. She knew exactly who to send them to. What she didn't expect was how fast they'd matter. The next morning, Elon was scheduled to meet lawmakers in D.C. on renewable energy tax credits. One of those lawmakers was Jasmine Crockett. They passed briefly in the hallway. He nodded. She didn't. Later that day, she handed Miles her phone. "Save these, somewhere safe. They're about to be useful." She didn't say more. She didn't have to. Meanwhile, the Austin whispers were already moving. A staffer from the mayor's office texted a friend on the Hill, "Yo, people are saying Elon's dating someone married." Like high-profile married. The response came back fast. Name? Lang. 2 hours later, a screenshot hit a group chat of Beltway journalists who pretended not to trade gossip. 2 more hours, and a former White House aide DM'd Ayanna. "Seriously?" She didn't reply. That same night, a blind item sat in the Politico playbook queue, just waiting on confirmation. And Jasmine? She said nothing. Because power wasn't about noise. It was about timing, and hers was perfect. No names yet, just the bones of a story. A major tech figure spotted getting cozy with a D.C. spouse at a private function. Bronwyn Lang, for her part, posted nothing. Her Instagram, locked. Her Twitter, silent since January. but the vacuum only made the whispers louder. Miller, meanwhile, had gone completely off-grid. He was deep in prep mode for the upcoming hearing, studying Crockett's voting record, rewatching old speeches, even hiring a PR consultant to polish his delivery. The goal: knock her off balance. Make her look impulsive, unprepared. What he didn't know was that a storm was already forming, one that had nothing to do with legislation, and Jasmine Crockett had chosen not to warn him. Not yet. The morning of the hearing, Jasmine's phone buzzed with a message from a Daily Beast reporter. Off record. Can we talk? 2 confirmations on the Musk-Lang story. Don't want to step on anything sensitive. She didn't respond. This wasn't revenge. It was timing. Let arrogance bloom just long enough before the fall. She knew Miller well. He'd pressed too hard. He always did. And when the public mask cracked, when his poise collided with ignorance, the fallout would speak louder than any headline. So when she smiled at him across the committee table, just the faintest curl at the corner of her mouth, it wasn't cruelty. It was strategy. She didn't need to humiliate him. Reality was already doing the job, because sometimes the person at the center of the story is the last one to realize they've become the headline. The committee room filled slowly that morning. Jasmine was already seated, calm, focused, her notes stacked neatly in front of her, not that she needed them. This wasn't her show, it was Miller's, and Stephen Miller never could resist a spotlight. He walked in with theatrical confidence, chin high, jacket crisp like he was stepping onto a debate stage. His staff trailed behind him, young, sharp, visibly anxious. Jasmine watched from her seat, still, expressionless, waiting, because Miller had no idea the foundation beneath him was already cracking. She wasn't holding a sword. She was holding a pin. All she needed was the right moment to press. The chairman rattled off the procedural notes. Miller would get 7 minutes to question Congresswoman Crockett on federal immigration delays. She adjusted her mic slowly. Miller started with faux warmth. Congresswoman Crockett, thank you for making time today. I trust you're ready to discuss the cost of chaos at our southern border. She met his gaze. I always am. Dry, controlled. The room caught the temperature shift. He leaned forward. Last year, you supported a bill that redirected ICE funds to community shelters. Can you explain how that enhances national security? She gave a faint nod. Sure. Though I think a better question is how detaining children in for-profit centers did. A soft ripple of laughter stirred near the press bench, quiet but pointed. Miller's jaw ticked. So, you believe reducing enforcement makes us safer? I believe compassion is a form of security, she replied. But I'm sure you have your own definition. Her voice was steady, measured. But she was guiding, every beat. In her periphery, she saw phones lighting up, staffers whispering. A new tweet was going viral. Confirmed. Bronwyn Lang seen entering Elon Musk's Austin residence 2 nights after the gala, alone. Jasmine didn't need to mention it. She just needed Miller to feel it. He pressed again. Congresswoman, is it compassionate to encourage unchecked border crossings that lead to trafficked women and exploited labor? His classic pivot. Paint her as soft, reckless. But Jasmine smiled. Subtle. Exact. Stephen, she said, using his first name like a scalpel. Do you really want to talk about exploited women today? The silence was swift and thick. Someone coughed in the front row. Miller blinked, thrown off just a beat too long. I think you're deflecting. No, she said evenly. I think I'm being direct. You just don't like the direction. His face tensed. He fumbled his next line. You think this is funny? And that's when she did it. She laughed, not loud, not mocking, just a soft, warm chuckle under her breath. Actually, she said, I think hypocrisy is always funny, especially when it dresses up as outrage. Later, they would say that. was the moment, the one no prep could have shielded him from. Because the real damage didn't come from the headlines. It came from being outplayed in plain sight. It was the beginning of the end. Miller never recovered. He tried to pivot, fumbled through a misquoted source, even butchered the name. But no one cared. The room had already turned. And Jasmine? She just folded her hands, leaned back, and let him unravel. The clip hit social media within the hour. A hot mic had caught the moment, that dry, sharp laugh, and it took on a life of its own. Commentators dissected it like scripture. TikTok gave it background music. The laugh that shook Capitol Hill, they called it. But before it ever went viral, before the panels and think pieces and memes, everyone in that committee room already knew. Something had shifted, because power doesn't always roar. Sometimes it waits, and then it lands. What followed made the hearing feel like the overture. Even before Jasmine left the building, the 6-second soundbite, silence, then laugh, had already been clipped and posted. No caption, just a timestamp. Watch this exchange carefully. Down the hallway, her phone started buzzing nonstop. Miles trailed behind, glued to his tablet. "You're trending," he muttered. She didn't break stride. "Let me guess, the laugh?" He nodded. "That and a few other things." Outside, reporters clustered near the exit, CNN, Rolling Stone. She offered a polite wave. No comment today. But the story didn't need her words. It was writing itself. By mid-afternoon, the clip had passed 3 million views. A former DOJ official reposted it with the line, "Poise is knowing when to speak and when to smile." Cable news picked it up by sunset. MSNBC ran the footage, then cut to a live shot of Elon Musk speaking in Boca Chica. The segment title, Collision, Power, Politics, and Infidelity. On Reddit, someone unearthed a year-old photo of Elon and Bronwyn Lang at a DC charity auction. No touching, just standing too close. But the internet thrives on proximity and suggestion. On TikTok, Jasmine's laugh got the Kill Bill treatment. Zoom-ins, sirens, text overlays. When you already know the tea and your enemy walks right into it. But by dinner time, the joke became headline. Breaking. Multiple sources confirm relationship between Elon Musk and Bronwyn Lang, wife of political advisor Stephen Lang. The Daily Beast dropped it first. Politico followed. Then TMZ. No statements. From Miller. None from Bronwyn. Elon just tweeted, "Life is stranger than fiction." 80,000 retweets in 3 hours. Inside Jasmine's office, the atmosphere crackled. Miles paced by the window. "Think he'll resign from the advisory committee?" Jasmine sipped her tea. "He might bluff his way through." "You want us to get ahead of it?" She leaned back. "No need. He's unraveling on his own." Miles paused. "You really didn't plan this?" "I didn't leak it," she said, then smiled. The same quiet smile from the hearing. "But I'm not surprised it got out, because the truth was, in DC, power doesn't explode. It crumbles. Quietly. Then suddenly. And sometimes all it takes is one well-placed laugh to crack it wide open." The calls started that night. Colleagues offering compliments disguised as diplomacy. Class act. Handled with grace. Surgical. She nodded, said thank you, knowing exactly what they meant. Even her critics stayed quiet. Right-wing pundits danced around the scandal, trying to steer the story back to immigration. But the air had already left the room. No one was talking about policy anymore. They were talking about power, about betrayal, about the look on Miller's face when Jasmine said, "Do you really want to talk about exploited women today?" It wasn't just a viral moment. It was a mirror, and he couldn't look away. As the coverage spiraled and timelines blurred, one thing remained invisible to the public. Jasmine hadn't just seen this coming. She'd prepared for what came after. That night, Miller missed his scheduled Fox News appearance. He was supposed to speak on restoring border control, his favorite topic. But producers got a call an hour before airtime. Personal emergency. No details. Off the record, someone on his team admitted he was handling private matters. Translation, damage control, and the laugh still echoing. The internet hadn't moved on. The Musk-Lang story still dominated headlines. Not just in political feeds, but across morning shows, finance blogs, gossip YouTubers, and late-night monologues. Every corner of culture had picked it up. And Bronwyn? Silent. Gone. Reporters camped outside her D.C. townhome found nothing. A neighbor claimed to have seen her boarding a flight from Dallas to San Francisco. Alone. Miller's silence spoke louder. He didn't deny a thing, didn't clarify, didn't correct. He just vanished into what one aide called internal lockdown. No emails, no returned calls. Even his own team had no idea how to move forward. While he spiraled, Jasmine moved. She met with housing advocates, spoke on a local radio show about small business equity, guested on a podcast about narrative and political resilience. She never once mentioned the scandal, but every interviewer did. "Congresswoman, how do you stay composed when things get messy?" She smiled. "Focus helps. I've got real work to do." And she meant it. Meanwhile, Miller's work was dissolving. Within 48 hours, the advisory committee quietly scrubbed his name from their website. A generic statement followed. "We are reevaluating personnel in light of recent developments." No names. But everyone knew, even donors began pulling back. A conservative foundation, once a major partner of Miller's think tank, issued a bland press release about restructuring priorities. From his desk, Miles scrolled through the news, half grinning. He really thought he was untouchable, he muttered. Jasmine didn't look up from her paperwork. He built his image. Like a fortress. Cold, unshakable. Thing is, fortresses don't bend. They break. By Thursday, The Atlantic dropped a long-form piece. The Fall of Stephen Miller, a cautionary tale in ego and evasion. It was unsparing. It chronicled his rise, his playbook of fear and spin, his refusal to pivot, and how the affair didn't destroy him. His response did. The silence, the hubris, the refusal to yield. Jasmine's name appeared only once, in the final third. During the hearing, Crockett maintained her composure. Her smirk, brief, unscripted, became a symbol of control in a room on the verge of combustion. She never tried to be the main character. That was the point. This wasn't revenge. It wasn't performance. It was a warning about what happens when men try to shape narratives they no longer own. Later that week, a small envelope arrived at Jasmine's office. Handwritten, no return address. Miles opened it first. Inside, a letter from a group of young women working in public policy. "We watched you during that hearing. We noticed what you didn't say. We've never felt more seen." Jasmine folded it gently and slid it into her desk. Drawer, not for flattery, but for focus. A reminder. Whether Miller rebuilt or vanished, whether Bronwyn stayed silent or came forward, none of it defined her. She hadn't leaked photos, hadn't fed the press, hadn't thrown the first punch. She let the truth breathe and watched what happened. But before the week ended, there was one final twist. A meeting no one expected, not even Miles. Late Friday, Jasmine's scheduler, Evie, soft-spoken and efficient, knocked lightly on her door. "There's a meeting request," she said, holding a folded slip of paper. "Came through personal channels, not official." Jasmine set down her pen. "Who's it from?" Evie hesitated. "Elon Musk." Jasmine blinked. "Here? In D.C.? Evie nodded. He's flying in. Said he'll be at the rooftop bar at the Conrad Hotel. No security, no press, just wants to talk. You're the only name he gave. For a moment, Jasmine said nothing, just looked at the paper. Then she stood. Clear my evening. She arrived just past 6:45, alone. Charcoal pantsuit. No staff, no entourage. The rooftop was hushed, sunlight bleeding gold behind the federal skyline. Elon sat at the far end of the bar sipping ginger ale over ice. Alone. When he saw her, he stood. Congresswoman, Mr. Musk. Her voice was cool, steady. I didn't think I was on your social calendar. He gestured to the chair across from him. I figured I owed you context. She sat, crossed one leg over the other. I'm listening. He exhaled. This thing with Bronwyn, it didn't start the way it looked. She'd reached out about tech policy, quietly, back in January. It was never supposed to become anything more. Jasmine tilted her head. And yet, here we are. I didn't mean to light a match, Elon said. But I know I did. He paused. I'm not here to justify anything. I know what it looks like. I just figured, considering where the fire landed, you might appreciate some honesty. She gave a short laugh. Not the one from the hearing. This one held no amusement. You're not worried about me, she said. You're worried about him. Elon didn't deny it. I didn't leak it, she added. Didn't need to. You don't beat someone like Miller by flipping the board. You let him play himself. I figured, he said quietly. They sat in silence a moment. Below, DC traffic crept along like nothing historic had unraveled that week. Then Jasmine asked, So why now? Because I think you're going to have a bigger role than you think, Elon said. People saw how you handled that room, how you didn't swing. That matters. She studied him. Is this your version of flattery? No, he said. It's my version of pragmatism, and maybe a little respect. That word, respect, hung in the air longer than the others. You think this ends with bad press and a few burned bridges? She asked. Stephen's not your problem. Men like him don't vanish. They rebrand. I know, Elon said. But he won't come back the same. Jasmine leaned in. No, she said. He never had power, not real power. He borrowed it. From fear, from silence, from perception. That's why one truth rattled him so hard. Elon nodded slowly. Then maybe we helped him face something he's been avoiding. She finished her water and stood. I didn't come here for closure, she said. And I don't care about his fallout. But if you're thinking of throwing your money behind anyone next cycle, pick someone who doesn't flinch when truth walks in, or worse, laugh at it. Elon gave a slight nod. Fair. She turned and walked away. No handshake. No second. Glance. Miles was waiting in the car. How was it? He asked. Informative, she said. Anything change? No. Not for me. That night back home, Jasmine sat on her couch as the city buzzed outside her window. She replayed Elon's words. You're going to have a bigger role than you think. Maybe. Maybe not. But she knew this much. Truth, when wielded with patience, could level giants. And sometimes, the quietest conversations left the deepest cracks. Monday came. No press conferences, no statements, no leaked voicemails, just silence. From Stephen Miller and from Jasmine Crockett. Back at her desk, reviewing housing legislation like it was any other day. Her staff wanted to celebrate. They'd seen the numbers, the shares, the flood of praise. She shut it down. This wasn't a win, she told them. It was a warning. Miles raised a brow. To who? To anyone who thinks image is stronger than integrity. But she could feel the shift. Colleagues who'd kept their distance now lingered at her door. A senator who once dismissed her as too emotional for committee work sent a handwritten note. Elegant composure last week. We need more of that in this building. She didn't keep it. She wasn't interested in respect that showed up only after the storm. The lesson was simpler than that. Power, real power, isn't who talks loudest. It's who listens, who waits, who reads the room before speaking. Miller had built his brand on sharp words and calculated chaos. He thrived on making others overreact. But Jasmine didn't take the bait. She didn't defend, didn't swing, and every hit he threw landed flat. Every question bounced off a wall of stillness and strategy. She had learned long ago, some battles aren't won through force. They're lost through arrogance. Let people talk long enough, and they'll reveal exactly what they hope to hide, like when Miller tried to trap her on human rights, unaware the nation was about to question his. Or when he accused her of weaponizing compassion, not realizing his own personal life was about to be dissected by the very public he thought he controlled. That was the difference. He played for headlines. She played for silence. And even now, she didn't feel proud, at least not in the way people assumed. She felt centered, aligned. She knew who she was before the hearing. She knew after. The hashtags didn't matter. The algorithms didn't define her. That afternoon, she met with students, a civics program from a Baltimore charter school. One girl, maybe 13, maybe 14, raised her hand, eyes uncertain. How do you stay calm when people are mean to you? On TV? Jasmine smiled, soft and certain. Because I don't measure myself by their reactions, she said. I measure myself by my intentions. If I'm standing on truth, I've already won. Even if it doesn't look like it yet. The girl nodded, writing that down like it might be the most important thing she heard all year. That's what no one talked about. The residue power leaves behind. Not the headlines, not the applause, but the quiet watchers, the ones taking notes on how you hold your ground when everything else is falling apart. It was never just about Miller, or Branwyn, or Elon. It was about what people saw when ego buckled and truth stayed seated. They saw control, grace, strategy, restraint. And maybe, just maybe, it shifted something in how the world viewed women like her, black women in politics, women who didn't yell over the noise, but built something solid beneath it. She walked the students out herself, shaking every hand, making eye contact with each one. Miles caught up to her. You didn't have to do that, he said. I know, she replied. But that's the job. She paused, then added, I'd rather be remembered for how I held myself, not how I made someone else fall. But one message still lingered. And it wasn't just for the room. It was for everyone watching at home. The clip didn't just trend, it stayed. A week later, it was still circulating with new captions, new context. Teachers used it in debate classes. Commentators broke it down frame by frame. And young women, especially black women, kept sharing it with one simple phrase. This is how you hold power. Jasmine never addressed the scandal directly. She never confirmed if she'd known, never mentioned names. She didn't need to. Her silence wasn't avoidance. It was control. Her restraint? Louder than any press conference, sharper than any headline. And because she said less, the world leaned in more. One night, alone in her apartment, Jasmine rewatched the clip. Not out of ego, not for praise. She was studying something else, her own laugh. Shorter than she remembered, barely audible. But it carried weight, because in that tiny moment, it said everything. I see you. I see through you. And I don't need to raise my voice to leave with the power intact. She closed the laptop and, for the first time that week, let herself feel something new. Pride. Not for how it ended, but for how she showed up. In a city obsessed with the last word, she reminded people, sometimes the smartest move is knowing when not to speak. This wasn't just about Stephen Miller. It was about what happens when truth sits across from arrogance and doesn't blink, when ego stumbles and power isn't loud, it just endures. For every woman who's been interrupted, underestimated, or spoken over, Jasmine Crockett's laugh became a symbol. Not of mockery, of clarity, a line in the sand, a moment that said, "I see what's happening, and I don't owe you my explanation." That kind of confidence can't be taught. Not in seminars, not in media training. It's lived, learned, forged in fire. And once you have it, no one can fake it like you. So here's the lesson. One worth remembering. Sometimes, the most powerful move is staying still while everyone else self-destructs. That's not silence, that's dominance, that's maturity. That's what real leadership looks like. And if you take anything from this story, let it be this. You don't have to yell to be heard. You don't have to fight to be respected. And you never have to lower yourself to prove your worth. Because when your truth is solid and your presence steady, the world notices, even when you're not trying to be seen. If you believe stories like this matter, if you care about how power really moves and how people rise above the noise, subscribe, share. And most of all, keep showing up in your own life with clarity, not chaos. Until next time, watch closely, because character always reveals itself, eventually.